There are thousands of U.S. citizens who are stuck in Sudan, and the number is anywhere from 5,000 to 16,000. Guess what? We actually don't know the exact numbers of Americans in Sudan, but we do know they're there, and we do know people want to get out. So are we going to save them? Should we save them? And can we save them? My name is T-SPLY. Let's get into this video. Now, off the bat, the State Department has already put out a statement saying, it is not quite our job to go out and save you if we have already told you not to travel to a country. Let's play this clip.
It is not standard practice for the United States to send in the U.S. military into war zones to extract all American citizens. But Americans should understand that we will go to great lengths to support and facilitate their departure from difficult circumstances, that we will try to protect them from harm as best as we possibly can, but that there should not be a broad expectation of a massive military operation.
So that is the current stance as of making this video. There is not to be an expectation that there will be boots on the ground. There's going to be this massive military operation to go and save you because, again, U.S. citizens have been warned that you need to be careful if you go to Sudan because things could destabilize. Now, before you guys ask me, well, how are they supposed to know what I can and can't do and what the government is saying? There are plenty of government websites like the U.S. State Department that have special, not travel restrictions, but travel advisories. And you can go to any country ever and it'll tell you whether it's safe or not safe. And obviously right now, Sudan says do not travel, but that's mostly because there's almost no safe airport right now in Sudan. And we'll get into that later. And this might freak some of you out. You can even go to CIA.gov and go to any country you want, and they do a total breakdown, a comprehensive breakdown. They talk about everything when it comes to any country. So if you are in college or in school and want to learn about a country, this is a great resource. I've used it in my university studies. I suggest you go over to the CIA.gov and you can go check out any country you want. And especially with Sudan, you can learn right here, it's not the safest country, especially right now. So the most recent evacuation that we can really compare Sudan to happens to be the Afghanistan evacuation because we're still talking about it today. There's actually a whole court hearing talking about it. So there are many points of comparison that we can look to in Afghanistan and Sudan and why things are not happening and why things are happening. Okay, first thing you need to understand, the Afghanistan evacuation was a total timeline from the Taliban saying, you have lost the war, get out of our country, we're going to give you a timeline, we're going to let you work at the airport, do whatever you have to do, get everyone out of here right now. That is not the case in Sudan. In Sudan, there happens to be a lot of U.S. citizens in a country that happen to destabilize. So it has nothing to do with U.S. citizens there. It just so happens that they're sort of like collateral damage, if you will. And that's why the State Department sort of has this tone of, we told you not to go there, you should have been careful, so do not expect us to come out there. But there's also some other issues. You have to consider during the Afghanistan evacuation, the main way we got out of Afghanistan was the Kabul airport. That airstrip was so vital. It was rather protected on all sides. We needed to maintain that airport. And right now, there is no airport. We don't have any air assets to get anybody out of Sudan because look, we had never had a potential threat to do that. In Afghanistan, we were there for over 20 years, so we already had air assets and we had the capability to get people out of there. And it's not like we can't send the 82nd Airborne or any sort of QRF, Quick Reaction Force, to go in Sudan and secure the airport, but that might actually cause more problems. Because look, at the end of the day, the U.S. military has nothing to do with Sudan. We have no business going in there and causing more trouble and saying, hey, look, we're just here to get our people. Because yes, we can do that, but then we would cause more destabilization. It's not the greatest look. So again, we have this issue of, do we have to go and save these Americans because they were warned? Should we go save them because we have a policy of no American left behind? Well, here's what's sort of going on. One thing you have to remember is that during the evacuation of Afghanistan, a lot of nonprofits actually came in to come and help. And I mean a lot of them. They were coming out to save interpreters. You had individuals putting out a lot of money to go and save Americans, get them out of Afghanistan, or anybody who had been associated with Americans, because those people were being targeted. Now, this is Tim Kennedy, and he runs one of those nonprofits who was actually boots on the ground in Afghanistan and was quite literally saving our allies. The name of his nonprofit is Save Our Allies. I'll leave a link to the description if you want to go support him, and I'll let him speak on what he wants to do in Sudan and how he wants to extract civilians.
Obviously, we were in Afghanistan during the evacuation. It was paramount with so little time to get as many of our allies and Americans out of Afghanistan during the fall. When Ukraine first kicked off, we started providing humanitarian aid in what we call the last mile. So there were big organizations, but they weren't capable of getting to the very, very front lines to make sure the people that were trapped there had resources.
One thing I want to point out, in Tim Kennedy's organization, the boots on the ground are not like regular Joe Schmoes. Like, even if I was a combat engineer, I probably would not be qualified for the people who are boots on the ground there. He has like legit pilots, doctors, ex-special operations who are out there getting the job done. It's actually quite an interesting organization. It's a very unique organization as well.
So Sudan started destabilizing in early April, there's two military factions that are fighting each other, and a lot of the people that are getting hurt are kind of like collateral damage. And
again, that is a main point. That is the main basic argument, and sort of like the moral argument where the U.S. is like, you guys are collateral damage. You're not necessarily being directly attacked. Now, I will say, if U.S. citizens were being directly attacked, I guarantee we would have sent an entire brigade or two to go, we're going to take over an airport and you guys will come to us. But right now, that's just not the case.
22nd of April, special operations from the Department of Defense went in and removed the ambassador and all the diplomatic staff out of the embassy. Our Americans that are there, and there are a lot, some of them want to stay. Some of them are dual citizens. They are Sudanese and American. But then there are Americans that are there that want to come out. It's dangerous right now because there are two military fractions that are fighting for power within Sudan. We currently have people on the ground there. They are in the theater, and they are, doing everything that you would expect from amazing guys with expeditionary backgrounds looking for the best ways to get Americans out. Department of State and Department of Defense are amazing. We have the greatest country in the world, regardless of how we came to this position, how Sudan destabilized. None of that matters to us. All that matters is us saving Americans. So that is our mission, is to help evacuate Americans and our allies. If you got an airplane, you're hanging out in Egypt. If you're sitting in Ethiopia and you got a fat wheeled airplane, if you got a boat and you're in the port of Sudan, if you're in Chad, if you're in Djibouti, if you have friends or resources there, man, please let us know. We are looking to compile all of those assets. Heaven forbid it continues to destabilize and it gets a little bit worse. We want to be positioned in the best way possible to make sure that all of the Americans and our allies can get out safely.
So again, I'll leave a link in my description if you want to go support Tim Kennedy and save our allies. So a lot of people were also confused as to why we extracted only the embassy and the Marines, and why didn't we wait for other Americans? Well, this is sort of common practice. You have to understand that the extraction happened in Khartoum, and then they made it all the way to Djibouti. This is the other major U.S. base. And if you work for the embassy or you are a government entity, you are of government asset and you are priority. That's just the way it goes. So I personally don't think this is a good argument of, well, you took behind the embassy and you took the Marines. Why didn't you wait for other Americans? Well, they went there to go support and to serve the United States. It's like the embassy staff is almost like they're part of the U.S. military. It's no man left behind. And the Americans who are all around Sudan, who are scattered around Sudan, again, they have been warned that you have to be careful if you go to Sudan. So that is sort of what's going on in Sudan. This is a very basic breakdown. We don't have access to an airport. We told Americans not to go to Sudan. You should have been careful. The embassy's not there anymore. And now the State Department saying, well, we really don't want to go in Sudan and bring boots on the ground because that would just cause more issues, and that's not standard practice. I kind of lean in the middle. There's always a side of me that says we should always support and protect Americans. And the State Department, they are looking at ways to help extract Americans or make things a little more easy. But I'm also on the side of, if you go to these countries that could destabilize, you just have to be careful. That is the risk you take. So I encourage you that if you are going to travel, use the government assets I gave you. I'll leave them in the description below. And I want to hear your opinions and comments. Do you think we should go out and save all the Americans? Do you support nonprofits going out there and doing their thing? Or do you think we should just wait and see what happens because we don't want to cause more destabilization? Leave your comments and opinions down below. My name is T-SPLY, and we'll see you later.